microphones and call the meeting to order. As usual, I'm going to start with introductions. So I'm Chris Christensen, Chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the October 21st regular monthly meeting of the Merrimack Parks and Recreation Committee. And to my left is
Matt Kasparius, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Rick Grenier, MYA Liaison.
Jackie Flood, member.
Michelle Cushman, member and secretary.
Christine Lavoie, member. Julie Poole, member.
Nick Ropland, alternate member.
very good. Thank you all and welcome. I think you all have agendas, but I'm going to skip down to item number 4.
But we got before that we have Ian first. So
Oh,
Ian
excuse me.
first,
Okay.
then-
Excuse me. We're skipping down to number 3 first, which is an Eagle project completion from Ian Finkelin. You're here, and you want to step up and tell us how we're doing.
Hello. It's been a while. Last time I was here was November, so I've had a lot going on. You can start. You're going to pass one down and then another one down that way. So these are the pictures of my completed signs I did over at Wasserman Park. I ended up doing 7 in total. They put a lot of hard work into them. A couple design changes throughout the project just as they came up, but all the signs went together really well. I had a lot of help from my troop and my friends and such to get everything done, from putting my posts in the ground back in July to just getting all the different days to get my boards up and fix anything that needed to be done. So it's been a lengthy process, but they look great. I've already had a lot of people, even when I was putting boards up on different days, come over and compliment me and stuff with them. Say they look really nice and they're a good improvement to the park.
And we'd definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
So this was mostly to, thank Ian for this project, because again, it is a big improvement and kind of it helps really show that we are, again, investing in the park and making all these changes and stuff. So it was definitely something that was needed. And we invited him here, obviously, so that the board collectively could think.
Well, I, for one, last time I was here, we discussed signage and stuff. So this is a huge improvement for 2 reasons in my book. One is, there we go. I'm just going to say your signs are a huge improvement for 2 reasons. One is we had a mishmash of signs in some in good condition, some in not so good condition. These are great, but they're also fulfilling a function that we didn't have well covered in terms of finding your way around the park if you're not familiar with it. So I think that was a great project, not only from carrying it out, but from the idea in the first place. So I'm going to say thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Any other comments? Maybe if we can just get a picture with Ian real quick. Christine, do you have your phone on?
I do.
Just, so we can publicize it some more.
Which is a very good self-promotion.
Hey, the park needs it,
No, you do a great job.
Actually, I'm going to do one more because the lighting's not that good. There we go. Okay.
All right, thank you.
And they do look fantastic. I walked it all the time.
You know a good photo op when
I
you
do.
see one.
So now we're going to skip down to 4.
Yes. So now Jacob Harper, also an Eagle Scout project. You've got the floor.
And you needed that table?
Oh.
It's a 3D design.
Except that I probably need the power button in there.
Isn't, Do we want to? Yeah, thank you. Oh.
Is that the right angle?
I have no idea. Find out. If I had thought ahead, I would have turned it on ahead of time, but I hadn't thought of it, so. Yeah, actually we are. Okay. Might want to just move your laptop over a little bit. There we go.
See if I can get one just in the back. Is that good enough?
I don't think you can.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I guess just a little way by introduction. My name is Jacob Parker. I live here in Merrimack. I'm a life scout from Troop 48, and I've been working on my eco project, trying to get it going. I've been three of my older brothers have done projects in Merrimack, and I've really wanted to do a project here as well. And so when I learned about this project, I was excited and ready to work on it. So my plan right now is to build a deck in Wasserman Park, just up by the road for their archery range. The dimensions are about 8 feet by 20 feet. I can play a little animation for you. You just kind of get a look at it. Oop. So it'll kind of be a place for them to shoot off from and keep their bows and their arrows, their equipment off of the ground, as well as provide shade and shelter from rain. So yeah, that's kind of the aerial view of it, or what it'll look like. I guess this is my proposal. What questions do you have?
I'm going to hit the lights,
Sure.
Nick. Dan, just so we can.
You said it's 8 by 20?
Actually, sorry, 8 feet by 24 feet. Excuse me. Yes.
And I'll just sort of, the archery range for Nanticoke Day Camp has always been just kind of a haphazard. One summer was out in the middle of the soccer field. One year it's over by on the T-ball, what we'll call the T-ball field. I mean, it always kind of moves, and we've never had kind of a permanent home to put it, which makes it interesting because you're kind of redrawing the boundary lines and making sure you're netting and that kind of thing. So we've been trying to find a place to establish a spot, and we found one this summer. And one of our kind of my wish list for a while has been, let's make it something more permanent up there. It's as he said, it's up by the road, kind of near the park's exit, but it's got a rock wall behind it, and it's got a nice vegetative boundary behind it. Plus, we'll have netting, with the shooting piece anyway. But nobody else uses it, so it's kind of dead space. So it was a good home for it. So something we'll definitely have use for.
So visible from the road?
Yes. Which actually works in our favor. We had somebody call us this summer during camp when they actually saw kids shooting up there. And like I said, this summer they were just standing on the ground behind, a spray painted white line kind of thing, and said, I didn't know you guys had archery.
Right.
Huh.
Great. So now it's, it kind of helps sell things.
Thank you.
Jake, how many people can use it at one time, or what's the ideal?
Yeah, so actually I was thinking about that as I was designing it, and it's kind of designed for 4 shooters at a time, kind of with the placement of the beams, the post beams. But I mean, it's about 8 feet wide, so I guess you can probably fit 15 to 20 people on it at a time.
Thank you.
So those shelves, are they just for equipment? They're not benches?
They're both, so you can put your equipment on it or sit on them.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you're not doing an archery activity, somebody could sit up there and
Yep.
picnic out of the rain or something if
Yep.
they wanted to.
Multi-use?
Have you had any thoughts on what you're thinking for a fundraiser yet?
Yeah, so I was thinking either doing a pancake breakfast or maybe a spaghetti dinner, kind of maybe auction as well as part of that. So still need some planning going into that, but yes.
So you don't have those scheduled. We can't do a commercial tonight.
Sorry, no. I should have gotten that ready.
Well, when you get it scheduled, come back and we'll do it so people watching the show can
Okay.
see it.
Jake, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What requirement will this fill for you and Boy Scouts?
Yeah, so this will be my Eagle project.
Okay.
So they require that you do a major service project that shows leadership. So I'll be working on this and building it and leading other people as they construct it.
Awesome, thank you.
Dan?
Did you plan out the structure? Like, do you already have a cost analysis of what you're going to be buying and everything like that? Could you just tell us what you've come up with for your plan?
Sure, yeah. So I've been working with a commercial constructor who I work with, and he would help me design it. So the cost is about $1,300 for this, and that's just the raw cost without donations or discounts or anything.
And you have to go to the building department for a building permit?
Yes, so we've contacted them, and we're going to set something up, and we can get that approved.
Yeah, I think sometimes we don't realize in some of these Eagle projects how many steps there really are in terms of getting it approved from the troop and getting it approved from the town or church or whoever you're working with for. And then the presentations and so forth. It's a long road, but we certainly appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions? Christine?
Jake, do you have an expected date that you're looking for?
Yes,
to-
I'm thinking to be finished by November 25th. So,
November 25th, like 8 weeks from now?
yes.
Wow.
Wow, that is ambitious.
That is
I am
ambitious.
impressed.
Okay.
Very good.
That's a lot of spaghetti.
Yeah, definitely some hard work. Yeah.
And obviously, we'll be looking to get you on hopefully the next council's agenda.
Yeah.
We meet tomorrow and then the November 5th. I believe
So
is our next
hopefully the 5th then, if it's not too heavy with other stuff.
If you could share more about your fundraisers when you figure it out,
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to help.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
And we need a motion.
And any more questions? We need a motion that is favorable to the project to send it on to the town council if somebody wants to
I'll make a
help us
motion
out there. Okay.
to that forward.
Second? Second, Julie? Any further discussion?
Recommended to the council, yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
What's the number?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That was easy, Jacob, right?
All right.
8. I don't
Thank
count.
you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8.
That's 9.
To go and,
Oh, sure. I'm
you
sure.
know,
Yeah.
'cause
Four.
Yeah.
4, and I'm 9.
Right.
8. You're counting.
Oh, I count. I'm sorry. Well, he's in favor, right? Yeah, that's right.
I know the number.
Okay.
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 So that makes you unofficially an alternate member of the board?
Yeah, right.
I feel honored.
Okay, yeah, so I'll be in touch, once I can confirm with the council that that date's available, then we'll get going.
Great. Thank
You'll
you
have
so
them
much.
put a motion in?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a motion,
I'll-
agenda.
Yeah.
Agenda item.
Okay, so should I submit an application or for
Um,
a meeting?
let's talk tomorrow,
Okay.
and we'll
He'll steer you right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob.
Boy, aren't we lucky? 2 great projects.
That's
just
right.
so you know.
Yeah, the town's got a lot of input from
Okay.
scout troops. Yeah.
So that brings us back to the agenda item for the approval of the minutes of September 18th? 16th.
And you folks don't have to stay, unless you're really captivated by,
It is entertaining, I know.
it can be.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So the minutes have been distributed. Do we have a motion relative to September 16th?
oh, yeah.
Anybody?
Motion to approve minutes?
Thank you. And do we have a second? Thank you, Christine. Any discussion, changes, omissions, corrections? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
You're getting really good at this.
Abstentions? I abstain.
I don't.
That's right, you weren't here.
And who else? Jackie was not here? Anybody else?
No, it's just,
Okay, so
We're
two
the
abstentions.
people who don't know who wasn't here.
Well, it's in the minutes.
yes.
Yeah.
602.
Okay, thank you all very much. Brings us to old business, which was the recognition of Ian, which we did,
Yep.
and update from the Friends of the Merrimack Dog Park.
I'll start, Christine, with the money, and then I'll let you, and then we'll get into the rules. But so during the month of September, we had contributions of $622.83, giving the balance in the account basically $52,049.60, if my math is right. Yeah. And I don't know if there's anything more coming, like, I don't know if we've gotten the thing from Savers yet, or,
Savers should have come in already. Savers should have come in
I'm
already.
not sure if my list tells me or not. Oh, yeah, Savers did,
Nothing-
Savers, Shaw's,
Shaw's was turned in.
Bertucci's,
Yep.
yeah, okay, so
So
maybe
we're
everything's
working-
in at the moment, I think.
I think so. There was a few people who mentioned they've sent in donations, so I'm not sure if it was in a cash form or a check form, so they'll let us know. We'll be meeting next week to discuss future fundraisers, so any ideas anybody
Thank you.
has. We are always taking new ideas, trying to keeping it fresh, new fundraisers, and we're still doing sponsorships as well. And Matt asked to bring forth to the meeting the current draft of the park, dog park rules that has been recommended. So that's what's being distributed now.
And pay attention to this one, not necessarily the one I emailed out, because I'm not 100% sure the one I emailed was the latest version. I thought of it yesterday, and went,
There's a few versions out there now, so.
right, and, yeah, anyway, so, this is the one I think that we finally came up with, so,
Okay, well, I need one of those back.
What do you need?
I made my own copy of
oh, okay,
the one you emailed.
Oh, that's the one I have too.
okay, so,
Okay.
I have a comment.
yep,
We were over at Canine Country yesterday with the dog,
mhm,
and I looked at their rules,
yep,
and they're very similar.
yeah,
Yes, what we did
Use
is,
mine.
as part of the committee, is we researched area dog parks.
Yeah.
And on average, they have between 20 and 25 rules, and they listed out
Yeah.
really plain, short sentences, making it very easy to follow.
Oh.
And that's kind of the track we're going with, and trying to blend what the town might want, and everybody, has thoughts and opinions, which is great, and we're trying to make it as nice and easy for people to read and understand, and hopefully address every situation. Not that we can possibly do that, but get as many covered as possible.
and we did in multiple versions try to go to like pictorial versions, but it just didn't work. There was too many things that there was nothing, there was no picture that would represent what the rule was. So it was, and it looked messy trying to have some pictures and some not pictures.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
It got
so we
cluttered.
kind of went away with that.
We tried it. Yep. Okay.
I had one question that kind of stood out in my mind. The age referred to in here is 16, and I haven't got a legal opinion on this, but I think probably ought to be 18
Well,
if you're responsible for.
no, and that's something that's been kicked around. It kind of goes, there's a couple versions in most parks, and the thought process is if you're legally able to drive, then these people will be able to bring their dog. We have not consulted any lawyers. We don't have lawyers at our access. So it's something that will have to be discussed when it goes through town council, and the lawyers for the town make the final decision, is the thought process. So we'd start with 16 and go from there. That was where we thought.
Well, I'm also thinking, what about if you're a mom or dad and you have your 12-year-old with you, and you're maybe at the car while the 12-year-old is walking to the gate, gets into the park, but there's still the parents nearby, but not really with them. So that's kind of a gray area.
And that's something that even like at skateboard parks and at
Yeah.
playgrounds, you're always going to have those scenarios.
Right.
And hopefully people use their best judgment for the safety of their child.
Yep.
And it depends on the time of year, the dogs that are in play. There's a lot of considerations, and hopefully people do have to use their, common sense when they use any park
Excuse me.
in any town. That's my thought process. Oh, bless you.
Excuse me. Okay, so the final cut of this goes to town council, really.
Yep.
And you're considering this your final cut?
Is this the
Right.
final cut?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Matt's input has been really helpful.
Okay. I still personally would like to see it as 10 or less.
We did our
And
best.
I think some of that is formatting. So, for example, you can combine some of the handler responsibilities and say, these three things, that kind of stuff. I've said this before, anything that is state law or otherwise an ordinance doesn't need to be a rule here, like littering. I mean, we all know you shouldn't litter, but I'm not sure it needs to be on this document. The rule about size of dogs, I think might be more effective if on the gate it says small dogs only, large dogs only, as opposed to making a longer list of rules that are less likely to get read. So I think the information is all there, but I think there may be a different presentation that'll
And that's
make it easier to get the information out to people in small bites, pardon the phrase.
Absolutely, and that's a possibility we can look at. Putting additional signs on the fences is a possibility, but it is going to create more cost, because obviously those signs are going to cost more money than to put it all in one big, large sign. But it's something we can look at in the future as we get closer to doing the build.
And it's also kind of, here's the master list. So if you go to the town website, here's,
That's true.
even if you don't necessarily put every single word here, at least, as far as the town is concerned, maybe you don't need no littering or, Wasserman Park rules apply because that's a given, but you still need to have, here's the master official set of rules.
At least it's all in one place.
In one place, yes.
Exactly, and we can
Yeah.
post it to the website and the pages and stuff like that.
I see one that is I think redundant, but I know that you folks discussed this probably to death, knowing how committees are. But one of them is handlers must watch their dogs at all times, no unattended dogs allowed. And then another rule says no more than 2 dogs per handler, which is necessary, but handlers must remain in the same fenced area with their dogs. Might be maybe consolidated.
Into one?
I mean, you can certainly combine them. The process is that when you start going to dog parks and you read these signs,
Yeah.
if they're all glumped together, you're gonna, oh yeah. But if they're spelled out in short, quick hit sentences, people are more apt to read them and follow them. Redundancy, or I'm not sure that's the word you're looking for, but as far as handlers remain with their dogs, you'd be surprised what you see at dog parks.
Oh, it's necessary. It's completely necessary.
We've been running the play groups for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And you
But
you
it
see
already,
a lot of
yeah.
things.
But it already says no unattended dogs. That was the point of it.
So under this set of rules, and it's probably perhaps good practice, if I have a large dog and a small dog, I can't come because I have to be in the respective side.
Right. Well, that's the theory, exactly. Now,
I can't watch my dog from outside the fence.
well, it'll be very hard for you to monitor the dog, and certainly that has already been addressed and had a situation at play days come up, because we do have the split pens when the puppies come in and we want to bring out the small dogs and separate them. Currently, they run together right now. So when that happens, the handler, if they have a mixed dog, the dog will either play with the big dogs, or if they want to separate them out, they'll put them out, and they'll ask one of their friends to be monitoring that dog. So the handler always has on the same side, so that that dog is still monitored. It's not the ideal situation, but not everybody has 2 big dogs or 2 small dogs. So you just work on it to make sure everybody's safe.
And the 2-dog rule is also about trying to prevent, like, the dog walking services. In my former community, we used to have a big problem with this, where, and ours was we'd allow dogs on the beaches in winter, and our beach literally sat at the end of a dead end street, and the dog walking service would literally pull up, open the doors, and the dogs would just take off. Now, this beach is half-mile wide. Obviously, they had no control, whatever, but they'd let 10 of them loose at once.
Yeah.
You know.
It's crazy.
Field trip.
Exactly.
One of probably the most contentious issue in that town every single year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice list. You guys did a really good job on it.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Just to Chris's point, I know you'd like to get to the 10, but I know, as Jackie said, working on a committee to come up with something like this, tremendous amount of work, hours, so I know what you guys must have went through to present it. So all I can say is, as much as I might want to criticize it or try to cut it apart to do some more, I won't. I won't. I won't micromanage at that level. You guys, you had the task of doing it, so thanks. That's just one man's opinion. Good job.
I agree. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you. Just keep in mind, when we did this, we looked at the different parks, but we also looked at it from possible legal aspect and making sure the town is covered for as many possible issues as possible that could arise. And so I'm sure it's gonna get updated, changed a little bit when the town looks at it, as far as lawyers and stuff like that, how they want it read.
Yeah.
So we just tried to address as many issues as possible.
Yep.
And keeping that in mind.
Someone's going to break a rule every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on purpose. It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
their ignorance and not knowing, and then having someone just point it out when it happens is the best you can do.
Right, and have it as spelled out as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm going to guess, based on your research and going to other dog parks and so forth, most of this has pretty much stood the test of time.
That's a good point, too. Yeah.
And so you don't want to mess with it too much. Like I said, I think as long as you get all the points in here, then you should be good. But we probably need a motion of recommendation for the town council. So if somebody wants to make that motion, Christine?
Can I make my own motion for my own?
Of course. Sure.
I can?
Sure.
I motion to bring this to town council. I didn't know.
And Michelle is the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Now it's 9-0.
Now it's 9, yes.
And thank you guys for your input.
Okay. Taking care of the first part of new business.
Yep.
And Wasserman Park Function Hall rentals.
Okay, so as we gear up for getting this function hall open to the public, which will be happening some point late winter, early spring, hopefully if all goes well.
Early winter.
Early winter, well, maybe, and I'll talk about that later when we get to my report.
Hey.
But it's interesting. Just in the last week, I've had 3 different phone calls from people going, "Oh, can we rent that facility?" I had the chamber came over one day, and then I actually had a call yesterday from a woman who had worked for the Wasserman family when it was Camp Nanticoke, and they were trying to do a camp reunion.
Wow.
But they wanted to sleep over, and we're not there yet, So I think there's going to be a lot of interest on this. I emailed the draft the other day, but I'll hand it out as well in case you didn't print it. One of the things we're trying to do, obviously, is be competitive. This is a far more. There's a lot more covered in here than what the old policy was, which was basically give us your name and $30 and here's your key. Comprehensive, thank you. But we're seeing, thinking about, birthday parties, reunions, wedding receptions, you know, could be anything. And like I said, we had that family the other day, or that woman that called me the other day about wanting to do a camp reunion there. Well, give me a few months and maybe, you know. There are a couple of things, you know, our fees are trying to be, again, consistent to the area. In the old policy, they were renting out the rooms by, you know, with each room, with, you know, the front room, main room, and the back room were different fees, and then the basement was another fee. The problem is you can't really lock any one room off from the other rooms. And among other reasons is the bathrooms are in the main hall, so you still got to give them the access to that, you know. But the only thing I can lock is the kitchen off. So, so this is, you know, fair consistency. The idea here is, and what'll be in my budget, Dan, when we get to budgets, is that we're looking to have these staffed instead of handing
Hopefully
out
a
keys.
lot.
Yeah, and it's rather than just handing out keys and there was a lot of issues from what I can gather from when these were last rented, you know, with repairs. You know, it's like they charge a $30 damage fee, but then the damage might be $200 or whatever, you know. So it didn't really necessarily make sense. And so if you've got it staffed, one, you know the building's getting cleaned, and two, you can kind of preventative maintenance kind of thing on that. Plus, we need somebody to clean this building. Caretaker, yes,
Yeah.
and that's what we're looking at.
I think if I can interrupt, I'm thinking of modeling it, and it may be apples and oranges, but they're both fruit, so to speak, is the senior center.
Yeah.
You know, with the insurances and in the bylaw, and just the way the senior center is run, I can envision this building being run in a similar fashion. And so,
And that's kind of what we're looking at, too. And we did talk to them. Now, one of the questions that came up, and I don't recall if we really talked about it much last time, which was alcohol. It wasn't previously allowed. Obviously, if you don't allow it, you're limiting yourself in the market with some of these things. Again, wedding receptions in particular come to mind, reunions, corporate events, you know, whatever. I talked to the police chief. Basically, what he recommends would be, one, a police detail at the going rate of, I think it's
$64.17.
Yeah, $64 an hour for a 4-hour minimum. We talked about they being required to hire a caterer that has the tip certified bartenders. Technically, as individuals, they could go to the state and apply for the 1 day, and we figured we'd just make it clean and just say you got to have the bartender that does it for you, just to make it less. And then just any rentals, whether there's alcohol or not, obviously have to have the liability insurance.
once you enter the realm of a function hall, and if you want to have a wedding, if you want to have functions, then it comes with licensing for alcohol. I mean, this is a big boy country with big boy rules, and as long as you want to do it, they shouldn't be barred for saying, you know, demon rum, we shouldn't have any alcohol on the property. I'm just saying, if you're going to operate it as a function hall and attract these types of rentals, then you have to be up with the modern rules and the way just like anybody else would run a wedding or anything too. So,
and realistically, these are still pretty reasonable rates, you know, compared to going to the hotel function hall to do the same reception.
Right.
You know, this is going to be a fraction of the cost.
Jackie, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I was wondering, if you had a certified bartender, would you still have to have a police detail?
The police are recommending that we would.
Just recommending, because I think that's harsh.
I agree.
It can be.
That's, I mean, it's huge expense if you think of a birthday party or something going for 4 hours.
Yeah.
4 times 64 is like $150 or
$250.
Yeah, thank you. Just for that, that's a lot.
Could you look at it as possibly, if it's a 4-hour party, depending if you're going to have as many as 50 people for that party, as opposed to 300 people coming in? Then maybe kind of adjust it in that
Judge
way.
it to the crowd.
Absolutely. That would be another.
Another 50 cars is one thing, is not as bad as hundreds.
Well, I'm
Right.
looking
And again,
at-
the police detail is only for alcohol.
nonetheless, if I want to do that, I would go to the adult community center, which by the time you add in the police officer and that kind of stuff is now cheaper than what you're getting here.
The rates are
We're
actually
very
going up.
close. And it's a much nicer building, no
Yeah.
offense.
Different.
It's a different type
It's a
of
different building. One's
Yeah,
rustic.
But the
one's,
point,
you know,
I think the point is, we don't ask for police. With all due respect to Chief Doyle,
Sure.
his position is, sure, of course I'm going to recommend a detail. Okay,
Yeah.
Makes me
that's
think
just the way things work.
when the VFW rents their hall for a wedding, you know what I mean?
No police
This-
officer.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing with Legion. Same thing with
And I
the other-
put it in there being on the conservative side, and because ultimately it's the council's decision whether they want to
How
require
all the
that.
bylaws are going to fall into place. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I would like to have
I hope it's
that
not
as-
as much work as the dog park bylaw.
Yeah.
I would like to have that as an agenda item for
Yeah.
us as well.
Right.
What's that?
So
Right.
that the alcohol in
That's true.
Wasserman
Yep.
Park.
Yep.
So that we can make a recommendation.
Well, I think right now, if you want to have alcohol in any park, Abbey Griffin Park, where you might have a wedding and a champagne toast afterwards or something, or the pavilion in Watson Park, I think you can go to the town council
Yep.
Yeah.
and get permission for that one event.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And you're not, there's a question here in my mind a little bit about the word serving. If you're giving it out, or it's a closed party or some such,
Yeah. Right.
that's a little different than if you're open to the, I don't want to say open to the public, but some sort of semi-open event at the VFW or the some other place. I think if you have to go to the town council and ask at that particular, on a case-by-case basis, or to Matt and say, you know, that sounds like something that maybe there should be a police officer there because of the nature of the group. It's
Or the
a-
number of the group. Could be
Or the
a
number.
number like you said, like it's 100 people or
If it's a
more or
wedding.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I would be inclined to leave that up to Matt, and then if somebody wants to appeal it, they can go to the town council. But I think in most cases, he can make a reasonable decision based on the group, but I'm reluctant to make it a requirement.
Well, and let me just read you what's in the Park and Rec bylaws at the moment. No person shall use, consume, carry, or bring any alcoholic beverages or unlawful drugs as defined by state statute, blah, 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 into any restricted recreational area for any reason with prior written permission of the town council or its designee. Alcoholic beverages may be consumed in pre-designated areas. So they can, the council in this case would have to amend this, obviously, to define
Or
the
almost
function
sounds case
hall.
by case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but that, you know, or you can say, Matt, you have the authority to say, yes, this is, you know.
Sure.
Well,
sure.
that may be something they want to retain for themselves, which
And
is fine.
they may.
That's fine.
Again, I was trying to.
But I think that's a better statement than requiring a police officer. And if town council wants to require a police officer, then that's up to them.
I agree with you. It just seems like the town would want to be consistent. You know, if currently they give permits, do they require the police officer there versus, but.
But at the same time, I know that the schools, if they do an event outside of school, they got to pay for a police detail. Because I know Thornton's Ferry, the movie night they just held last week, week before, whenever that was, they had to pay for that detail as a PTA or parent, whatever, you know. So, and again, thinking about
Was that for the
consistency.
parking? Was it? Because
I
sometimes
think
at
it-
Thornton's, they do get the officer because of parking can be difficult.
Yeah.
I
There's
think
a
it was, they were
bunch of
told they had to have it,
Yeah.
so.
I think there's a bunch of different reasons for it. Personally, I'd rather have an EMT on hand. I feel like I'm more likely to trip on the steps than I am
There you
to.
go. Michelle's going to be our caretaker / EMT.
One difference too might be
Put them up to that.
if you will there be anyone from the town on site? Because let's say you rent a hotel, there is a hotel representative there who would act almost as not in lieu of the police, but if there's no one,
Concierge of some- a care-
right?
what's
If,
it-
if
yeah,
the
a
only
caretaker
people in the
type of
park are the people renting the building and the
Right.
licensed bartender, you still might be missing some level of supervision.
I would envision it would be some type of a caretaker. You know, lights go off, fuses break. You know,
Right.
there's going to be something. The stove also doesn't work.
Right.
There needs to be probably, if they're going to have a 4-hour function,
Yeah.
probably needs to be a caretaker person around during those hours that they know an event's taking place.
and I think that would certainly
Yeah.
pass over
Okay.
the police officer.
Any other,
Yeah, there is.
okay.
Is it like, these
And that's-
rates, is this $75 an hour or $75 for a 4-hour?
So there's 3 categories, basically based on what we talked about last time, which was a nonprofit rate, for nonprofit, the Girl Scouts or the Friends and Family or whoever. Businesses, Merrimack residents or businesses, and then kind of a non-resident rate. And so there's for nonprofit, it's $75 for 3 hours.
So it's $25 an hour.
Basically,
Okay.
yes.
So here's my area of questioning, and I bring this up in part because I've been on a committee up in Concord that's working on the same thing, having to do with volunteers and many of these same issues.
Yep.
And it goes this way. If I'm a nonprofit organization,
Yeah.
I belong to one that has 5 people on the board.
Mm-hmm.
We have little money. We have no insurance because we have little assets. But we've been in business for 15 years. So we're an established organization, blah, blah, blah. And if I want to throw some kind of meeting and invite other people to join us, $75 is a reasonable fee. The insurance is a whole different question. But if I'm an individual resident and I want to invite 5 or 6 people over, now it costs me $150. And I'm kind of missing the logic there. I would think the cheapest rate should go to town residents who already own the property.
If you only bring in 5 people, stay home.
Well, I'm saying that you have 5 in the organization.
Why do you need that big function hall for 5 friends?
Different issue, Dan. Different issue. The resident, in my book, should get the cheapest rate. If you're a nonprofit organization of some sort and you're doing an organization event,
Yep.
maybe there's only 5 people in the group, but you're running a fundraiser and you're going to have a spaghetti dinner to help an Eagle Project, then that's a whole different kind of ballgame.
But if I'm thinking of a wedding,
Yeah.
you're getting the room for 3 hours. Maybe say you want it for 6 hours. You're renting the hall for $600. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It depends on the event. Yeah, you could have an event that's really small and intimate, but then $150 sounds a lot. But if it's a big event, then $150 sounds really cheap.
Nothing.
Exactly.
After calling around last year for a spaghetti supper, actually, it was so sky high that
It's tough.
my organization couldn't afford it for the little we'd make profit for the spaghetti
Yeah.
dinner. So this is very reasonable. However, I did want to point out that the senior center doesn't have a person on site. They Steve goes over there and checks it
Before and after kind of
beforehand
thing.
and after,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
sends somebody else to do it, because you can't. Well, that would cost the whole rent.
At this at these rates,
You
your
wouldn't get
caretaker,
anything. Yeah.
could be
Well,
tough to.
a lot of venues too call out weddings and special events as a completely different category. Resident,
Good point.
non-resident,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
You
Okay.
attach bride and groom to something and the cost double
Right,
or triple.
right.
So
Yeah.
Is what?
if you attach bride and groom to an event,
Anything.
the cost just doubles or
Anything.
triples,
Yeah.
right? So.
Yeah.
So the
And
other
for, good,
question,
and for good reason. Yeah.
Yeah, probably so.
Right,
Absolutely,
right.
actually, yeah.
I checked in a nearby town where my daughter has rented the community center. $60 an hour. Here's the key, much more like what we used to do here.
Right.
And I thought that was a good deal, and it brought up the idea of an hourly rate. Now, you do say $25 extra per extra hour, so that's one way to do it. But the other question might be to look at number of people.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's what
Things.
the O'Leary
Smaller,
Center
larger,
does.
yeah.
Now, here's one of my thoughts, one of my concerns with that, and so again, O'Leary Center has somebody, they come and knock the door at designated time, come back at the end. Oh yeah, we only had 20 people, but 100 showed up.
It's hard to enforce.
You have no way to know. I mean, it's kind of like here, this facility before, when they'd say, okay, yeah, you're only using the front room.
And the cost of the lights are the same whether there's
That's what I
10
was just
people or
gonna say.
or 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still
Okay.
the same, doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It's
mean,
a work in
there's-
progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of
We've still got some time, but that's why
Okay.
this is
So-
a marked draft.
So there may be some further
Yep. This is-
thoughts on that part of it. Anybody else have anything else? Christine?
Well, I like some of Chris's ideas that I thought maybe we could explore breaking out the resident business. You know, true, residents do own the park like the rest of us. Maybe we should get a little bit more discount. Maybe we could do resident 75, business 150, explore that. You can also look at a stepped approach possibly of if they're expecting people. I don't know, that might be a little bit more cumbersome, but it might be interesting to explore.
I agree. I like that idea too. Residents versus businesses and breaking it up a little bit and having it a little cheaper for the residents.
Yeah,
Or a
the-
higher
the
rate if there
nonprofit
is
might be
alcohol.
considered a business.
True.
I'm sorry.
A higher rate if there is alcohol involved.
Well, they're going to have that extra fee because they're going to need the bartender and the caterer and,
Oh, that's
you
true.
know.
Well, there's a greater risk for damage, maybe. And I had one other comment, which was maybe the hours. I don't know what hours we would rent it. You know, if there's a cap, we wouldn't go past 1 a.m. or
We
11
actually,
p.m.
in the
or-
definitions, now, a couple things I want to point out actually here. If you look under the rental categories, you know, we talked about what a nonprofit was, what a
here it is,
resident
yeah.
was, what town departments, whatever. Based on our conversation last month, we talked about, nonprofits, we would, waive the fee in exchange for community
Well,
service in
I
the
think
park.
that's a great
I love that idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I see it here.
Um,
They're going to do the work before they rent
Yeah.
them.
or at least be set up, certainly. But the other thing we talked about was basically 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. For hours, and just in terms of, again, thinking about getting somebody to the facility to open in the morning, or, it could be a 7 o'clock aerobics class before work, or could be, late at night party, but don't want to go. I mean, realistically, they're not going to disturb the neighbors there, but still, you don't want to go in all night long.
So you're saying no overnights?
Not at the moment, no. And again, the liability insurance is something, obviously Primex recommends for all of our rentals. Again, even if, whether they're putting a security deposit down or not, it's not going to cost $25. It's going to cost, the toilet breaks or the stove
True.
goes kablooey or whatever, that's going to be a lot more than, whatever you could charge as a security deposit. So at least you have some way to get that fixed.
How does
Well-
that insurance work? Like if someone was to
It's basically, it's called TULIP insurance, so it's tenant user liability event insurance. So it's covering them and the town, obviously for damages. If somebody gets food poisoning, the town's covered, because they're doing a potluck or something. If somebody gets drunk and causes an accident, again, it basically protects the town and realistically the person renting the facility in case.
Any idea what that costs for my 3-hour birthday party?
It's well, you don't have to go through Primex to get it. You can, but you can get it from your own insurance carrier. Most, like a birthday party, it's probably $75, maybe less. It kind of depends. Again, for them, they base it on how many people, whether there's alcohol, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they have a whole.
I'm
sliding
thinking when I go to use the school,
Yep.
I think the limit is 300,000, not 2 million. And I can get a letter from my agent that shows that I have homeowners insurance, which covers that stuff. No cost to me, much better deal.
And again, you don't have to go through.
But most homeowner policies won't go up to $2 million. So and 250,000 is the number that we're working with at the state level.
Yep.
So I'm if for a business, they're frequently going to have $1 million or $2 million insurance. But for a group of people like this that said, we could throw a fundraiser down there,
And again, this is.
then we'd have to go out and buy that insurance.
Yep.
The birthday party, to get to 2 million, is going to have to go buy, and you're kind of ratcheting things up all over the place, which takes away the advantage to the town resident.
It is a little scary, like to I don't know.
Yeah, I had a pretty lengthy conversation with Primex about it, and and again, it's council's ultimate decision, but
But the big picture I'm thinking is there's an umbrella of parks. Someone had mentioned that tonight. We already are insured if our parks, if someone was to fall or get hurt. You can't prevent anybody from suing you, because
Yeah.
anybody can sue you if they want. It's whether you win or lose. But as long as we have an umbrella policy on our public properties already, I just got to think there'll be an added tweaking here or there to adjust to this new function hall.
Yeah.
Is my guess. Like, has there ever been alcohol in the library? Like, has there been a wine tasting test at the library or something over the years?
Don't know.
And I'm thinking there might have been, and if there was, I'm sure they were covered. You know, for that.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm just having a feeling that there was some way it was covered on our public stuff.
And like I said, this is a first draft, and because
Yeah.
it's gonna, we knew it was gonna take some time, but
Yep.
we didn't want to wait until the facility was ready to open and then go,
Right.
oh wait, you know.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Just
Jackie.
yeah, comment. I have always felt that it was a mistake not to allow alcohol at that particular spot. That I thought it was a wonderful place for a bridal shower, anything like that. And I also think that there is alcohol consumed all the time there, and you might as well.
This is legal this way.
Try to regulate it by having the bartender, which I think is a great way to do it.
Well, I'm sure there's people smoke cigarettes in the parks too, but they're not supposed
Well,
to.
that is
You know,
doubly shocking.
There's always going to be something there in a paper bag.
There's always going to be, so if we can bring it under some kind of,
Well, it's probably
Right.
better under control if it's
Okay.
not prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
So let's
paperwork.
go
So
back
anyway,
for a second to
yeah, go ahead.
the resident and the nonprofit. What are people's thoughts on, should the resident be cheaper?
Or the nonprofit should be more.
Or maybe they'd be the same.
I think they should be the same. I don't
think
they should.
the same is the better way.
And just simplify it and just say resident, business, nonprofit, or just or all those together as one, and then just out-of-towners as another fee?
Well, somebody, I think it was Dan, said, it's going to cost you the same to run the lights, turn on the heat,
Yep.
all of that stuff, whether you're a resident or a business or whatever. And, here's an idea. Our businesses pay taxes here, too. Maybe if you're an out-of-town business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd like to encourage businesses to come, and we encourage them to come and use the picnic area.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we want to encourage them to use the function hall in the same way? If you're
Maybe a
from out of
one-size
town,
fits all.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
In town.
Yeah, but maybe we need to work it through that caretaker thing. That what does it really cost us to run? What's our real cost to turn on the lights and shut them off, and then make sure that we're charging something where we just don't lose a penny.
Yes.
Even if we break even,
Yep.
I'm okay even with breaking even. And work it that way. Find out what the number will be to keep the lights on for 3 hours and stuff like that.
Yep.
The what?
Maybe it's in-town use, local, non-in-town use, and out-of-state. I mean, there's a couple different ways you could break it out.
the rest of it, I went through the rules. I may have missed a detail here and there, but I thought were all pretty reasonable.
Okay. So we'll-
Details not cumbersome, but all made sense, or at least they made sense to me. So that part of it
Okay.
was good.
So we'll go back and tweak some more, and we'll
I have
look
a
at-
couple suggestions.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
sorry,
go.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
On my mind. So on the contacts, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get a second contact in case you can't reach somebody. It's just that I see that a lot on forms.
Okay.
Like an administrative or management only box where you can put your final thoughts. Did they clean it up? Did they leave it in good working order? Would you rent to them again?
Well, we have our registration software that these would be going through, so it would go in there. We wouldn't need to do it on paper.
Oh, it wouldn't be on paper necessarily.
Well, for now, at least at the immediate time, rentals will be on paper, but
Yep.
we have our online registration software.
Okay.
So eventually, we could go online, just not right away. We want to just get the building up and running first, and then
So what's our shoot for date on getting the building? How soon do we need this stuff done, really?
we've got a couple of months, and
Okay.
I'll get to that when we get to my report later.
Okay.
So my
Christine
thought
had
process.
something else, I'm sorry.
I did. Just my thought process with the management only piece is that 9 months from now, you might not, or none of us might not recall that Joe Smith rented it and he was a bad renter. Maybe he did something that didn't go well and nobody remembered, and we rent to him again. This way you get the form, you have a way of tracking.
Well, and
that.
again, my software program can do that, so I can
theory, but it's-
put in notes so that if they show up to rent again, it's going to pop up with a message saying,
Charge more.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
are you anticipating once you get this in time, by the time that software gets up and running, you're gonna be using this, you're gonna be able to make notes and tweak? Okay, that would be my way of,
Because I was thinking just along the same line that there would be 3 good reasons. They would see that you are going to make a note on it, which is one
exactly,
thing.
they see it.
And 2, it's immediate. And 3, it's done around the same time as the rental, in case there should be a claim of some sort, that you could show that you made a note right then and there on the piece of paper. I'm just thinking it might not be a bad thing.
we'll see. I don't know. I have to think about it. If it's, am I going to do it? Right
Well-
on a piece of paper that gets filed in the file cabinet that, versus the computer
If there
software
is a
which I use
claim,
every day.
They're going to want to see a piece of paper, that's all.
It'll be in your inbox before it gets filed. Once it gets cleaned, you make a note. and then put it in.
Well, that's an administrative duty. I don't think we need to put that into the rules per se, but I think it's a good conversation.
Yep.
Is there anything else that anybody wants to think about in terms of the rental rules? There is only a small provision in here for routine rentals. Did you want to comment on that at all? Just to, if I want to rent it for 8 weeks in a row to run a dog obedience class.
Well, that's a different issue than, say, the Rotary wants to rent it for 8 weeks in a row.
Well, they're not
and-
charging admission.
Right.
So the question comes, that comes under that business category if you're charging admission.
Right.
Or a
Well-
teacher's fee or some other.
Right. Well, in terms of, somebody wants to come run an aerobics class, there is a provision under the rental definitions, which is, basically instead of, they basically pay a per head fee, which is what we do right now outside, so Kevin O'Leary's basketball camp pays us $10 per head for every week. So we get $1,200 from him for the summer to be used the basketball courts at Wasserman Park. So we're kind of using the same model inside for that kind of every single week for,
X number of weeks, but I'm going back to Dan's thought process of knowing what our expenses are. And if I'm going to run a yoga class with 3 people and our expenses are $75, then $10 a head, even though it's every week, unless we consider that a P&R program.
Which it
So if
probably
it's
would be.
related to P&R, it might be one thing. If it's a fundraiser because of, I can't think of anything offhand. There might be other things, and we can't address everything.
Well, and that's
all
just
at
it.
once.
It's you'd have 30 pages trying to address every scenario.
Wouldn't
so
know-
it's
and you
just
wouldn't know
we
which
come up
page
with
to turn to.
And what I put in here was, we'd work some arrangement out, whether it's long-term retreat, because again, somebody that's in there every single week for 40 weeks a year versus, 4 weeks, we'll probably give a bigger price break to,
Either way, though, if somebody's using it for 8 weeks, that's a heck of a lot of income for a rental building that we've had zero income from.
Right.
Correct? So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it would be a P&R program per se, or we do it in that fashion.
So, we want to move this to old business
Yep.
for next month to
Yep.
kind of take another look at.
Yep.
Work in progress.
Work in progress.
Nice job, Matt.
Yeah,
Very good,
job, Matt.
great start. Some good ideas in
I
there.
had about 40 different policies on my desk from
Oh, I can
every
imagine.
town, and it has it, and some were like where we used to be, and some were even further than where we're heading.
Sure.
So it's trying to find that happy medium.
Sounds familiar.
It says here, review draft policy on refunds.
Yeah. So this is one of the problems I've noticed in the year and a half that I've been here, almost 2 years here now. One of the things that tends to happen is we'll get people that'll sign up for programs, and right now, there's the refund policy with the town says, as long as you notify the department a week in advance, you get a refund. But for camp, there's a $25 deposit that's non-refundable, and I think they probably did that originally because of the cost of it. But some of the programs we run now are cost more than camp does, so there's no kind of consistent policy. But one of the issues with the dropping out a week in advance is suddenly they drop out, and where we suddenly had 10 people registered, now we only have 5. Or with camp, we have one of the things we tend to see a lot is people wait until the Friday before the session to register to make sure they have the money. And again, it makes it tough to staffing and supplies, and so a lot of times we're kind of running out last minute trying to buy this or that because we suddenly don't have enough. Or so trying to make a more uniform policy, and this is something Paul McCallan and I have already kind of been working on this. Basically, it changes it to a 2-week cancellation. We charge an administrative processing fee. If they cancel, again, so it's just giving us a little more protections. It makes it kind of uniform. So whether you're covering, and of course I can't find my copy of the policy, so let me just look at yours for a second here.
Go ahead.
And it just spells it out. Okay, all refunds are issued in form of a check versus if they pay with a credit card, sometimes they might just expect a refund of the credit card. And the problem with that is when we charge a credit card, there's that credit card transaction fee, which they pay. But if we do a refund of the credit card, now we're paying that fee. So that's a simple one. Again, 10 days instead of 1 week. And then again, the $10 administrative fee across the board, no matter what the program is, what it costs. We do reasons, we've had people, I can't go on the bus trip on Saturday because my husband just had a heart attack, and okay, we get that. We're certainly flexible with that kind of stuff, weather cancellations, and then obviously kind of covering for transferring from this class to that class, and if it costs a higher fee, then obviously this is how much you owe. And again, it's just this is somewhat informational.
Thank you.
Paul told me just when we get to the budget this fall with the council, just to simply mention it, but it's not like this committee doesn't have to recommend it at this point.
So if I sign up for, I'm going to use camp as the example.
Yep.
I sign up for camp the Monday before. So it's a week ahead of time. And then on that Friday, I find out I can't come. It's all within that 10-day period.
No. So 10 days. You have to. So if camp starts
make it
on
non-refundable?
if camp starts on July 15th, you've got to withdraw by the 5th of July.
And I didn't sign up until the 6th.
Doesn't matter.
So it's non-refundable.
But you
if
can
you're within
transfer
that
to another session.
Okay.
Is what we would like to do. And because again, there was no policy to address any of this pre-existing, so this was getting.
That makes sense until the last week of camp.
My
You get
two
credit for next year.
cents is to be hardcore about it because staffing levels are real. You're running a business. You've got a lot of plans, and that has to be taken to effect. I think it wreaks havoc on the program. So I could almost see myself saying I would have no refund unless it was a medical emergency and you can have a doctor's note, death in the family, something.
Yeah.
Leave this much room for a refund because it's just too much work involved, too much expenses in staffing to allow such a fluctuation.
Yeah.
I've had some experience running a snow sports program at school, and Pat's Peaks policy is exactly that. Unless there's a medical reason, no refunds. So I think your changes are reasonable.
Well, I'm thinking of the instance where you hire somebody to run a class with a guarantee that there's going to be 12 people in the class. You only have 8.
Then the class, well, in that case,
Now
and
you gotta
that's addressed in here too.
Yeah, but
is
I'm
obviously
thinking-
minimum enrollments aren't reached, then the class is canceled, and you get the full amount back, because that's obviously not your fault. So it's a little tougher than what we had, but it's not going to the extreme. And it's, it covers us in 99% of the situations.
Well, I haven't read through it, but what you're saying to me sounds good.
Okay.
And this is administrative. You don't need a vote on that one from us, okay?
Nope, just sharing for information purposes.
Looks good.
Always nice to share. Director's report.
Hey, now we're up to, because I haven't been talking enough. I know, and I'll be quick. We are now, or have been for the last 2 weeks, officially recruiting for our summer camp director to replace Allison McGuire, who retired at the end of the summer. It's been out there for almost 2 weeks. If you look at this job description that I'm passing around, it does say right now that it closes on the 23rd, which is Friday. But obviously, once we get to Friday, if we have no applications, then we'll just push another 2 weeks, and that's basically how HR wants to process it, is in kind of 2-week increments, and instead of just saying open till filled.
Sure. Are you getting responses?
Not at the moment,
Okay.
and it's maybe a little early for people to be thinking about it. But in an ideal world, my goal is to get somebody in and hired before Christmas, so that because usually right before Christmas I send letters to last summer's staff saying, okay, time to start thinking about summer. Are you coming back? And by the way, here's our director this year, just so you know, that kind of stuff. Plus, also, there's going to be a lot of training that this person's going to need, just the institutional knowledge and that kind of stuff. So the sooner I can get them on board. So if you know anybody, education background, recreation, works with kids, nonprofits, good, kind of level-headed, can deal with the crazy parents, send them my way. It's a summer job, then, we'll go from there. But it's out there. Wasserman Park, we are in process of getting quotes. We have 2. We're waiting on a third one on the water line. It looks like it's going to be privately done versus the village district. Because it actually might be cheaper than what we were thinking, but we should have the water line in no later than the beginning of December, and they feel they'll be able to still get the line in without, as short of any freak, Thanksgiving blizzard. We should get that piece in as soon as we get the water line settled. Then we'll deal with the heating system, which will be next, and then once we get the heating system in, obviously, then we can get the sprinkler system. So. Could be January, maybe earlier, but let's say January for now. I mean, realistically, I can't open it too early because I don't have a budget to pay for the heating cost anyway at the moment.
January's just not that far away.
No, it really isn't. I mean, but it could be January, February, somewhere in there, We're kind of playing it by ear at this point, but the water line's the first one, because then they can work inside, and then the heat's second, obviously. So then everything gets kind of dominoes from there. So, so we're moving along with that. Halloween party is this Friday. I'll pass around a handful of these. We got a couple of those that way. Don't give you very many. 5 to 8 on Friday. Fortunately, we've got good weather. We're going to be collection of inside, and last year we did the entire event inside, and we had probably 600 people in the building.
It was huge.
It was just massive. And again, fortunately, we're going to be able to move outside. The MYA actually gave us permission to use their lights for the night, and so I just have to move them over on Friday morning, light them up, so I can light up the kind of the bottom of the sledding hill, and we'll do the costume. Because last year, like the costume contest, it was okay, kids, stand still, because there just wasn't enough room to have them parade. There was no room. So now we're going to move them outside onto the softball diamond so they can parade around the base paths.
Well, tell the fire chief.
Yeah, I know. The one negative thing we did lose was the haunted house this year. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Captain Manueli over at the fire department. He's like, just a reminder, I got to schedule the inspection of the haunted house before they open. Not a problem. He calls me back 20 minutes later. He says, I just got a directive from the state fire marshal's office. No haunted houses and buildings without sprinklers. And so he had gone back to them. And he's like, can we put in a fire detail, engine there? And, nope, no luck. I mean, even though they've allowed it for years in that building, and I felt bad because the robotics kids had already started building it, and it was just, it is what it is. But realistically, it's a 1-year loss because by next year the function hall will have sprinklers, including the basement. So we'll do the haunted house in the basement next summer is the plan, or next fall, which is the plan. So I could use a couple of volunteers if anybody's around Friday night. If not, I'm okay. But you know, if I had an extra pair of hands, that wouldn't be too bad either. So if anybody's around, great, and if not, we'll figure it out. But otherwise, we're looking pretty good. We've got, like I said, we've got more activities than we had last year. We actually got a nice donation from Stonyfield Farms, is giving us 640 samples, 7-ounce samples of yogurt pouches, which I have to go pick up tomorrow.
Nice.
But you know, they donate to nonprofits in their events. So I put in a request. And why not? It's free.
Good
so,
idea, too.
So that'll be nice to have.
I want to say that was a great heads up on your part to pick up on that,
yeah.
and find out about it. Yeah.
The next one, and I know this is a bad word for you, Dan, but the holiday parade is 6 weeks away.
The what parade?
The holiday parade.
The Christmas
The church-
parade.
Yeah, the Christmas
You mean
parade.
the Christmas parade, Matt?
The Christmas parade. That's the
Christmas
one.
parade. Excellent.
It's 6 weeks away, and
That's Santa Claus.
Dan's already
And
building
Mrs.
his float.
that's good. Well, and that's one of the things I want to talk about. So our theme this year is Inside Santa's Workshop. And so I'm trying to, the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's been like 20 floats. And it's, most of the scout troops and then a couple of businesses. And I've been trying to come up with ideas on what we could do and actually do a float contest and have them judged, because we haven't done that, which would hopefully entice, it's like, oh, well, maybe if we gave them like a $50 Walmart gift card, so they could buy food or supplies or, whatever, which works great if you're a family, might even work if you're a business, but if it's the Girl Scout troop, whatever, that doesn't work. And so looking for ideas on what might work.
What about a free 3-hour event at the function hall?
And I thought about that, and the only problem is it's not ready yet, so I didn't want to offer something that wasn't quite available.
Well, you could still have it, and they can use it when it's ready,
close.
which won't
Yeah.
be
By the end of
too
December.
long, because
Yeah,
I
that's
think
not a
that
bad
would
idea.
be, and it would encourage actually, like businesses having a 2-for-1.
Okay,
It brings
I like
people
that idea.
in.
Exactly. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's free.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah? There you go.
well,
Okay.
maybe if you reach out to some businesses, they might donate something
I thought about
as a offering. So that's an idea.
Sure.
Yeah, and I need to get letters out in the next couple of days to all the groups. So I'm trying. It's like kind of racking my brain back and forth. It's like Buckley's is opening that new cafe thing. I was like, oh, maybe I go down and talk to them. And it's like I'm kind of running out of time to do that.
What are
you
they
know.
opening?
November 14th, 16th,
17th.
17th, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's November something.
They've got a
Bakery
s-
in Swans.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Last to know.
At any point, that is coming up. So letters are going to be going out probably in the next. If I can get to it before Friday, hopefully, if not Monday, those letters will be going out to try to recruit groups to start participating, because it's coming fast. I don't know where the fall went. I really
It
don't.
flies.
So I'm going to poke my head in here and just say, if you have great ideas on a prize or something for the floats,
Send them to Matt.
send Matt an email.
Sounds like a plan.
Absolutely.
But I do like the function hall idea, and you're right. Maybe it is close enough that function hall is going to be opening, and here's a free rental, and we can do that, unless something happens to come up in the meantime. And as long as the council's not going to have an issue with that, right? You wouldn't think, from your perspective.
You can't look at me. I'm
I
one
know.
of 7.
I know.
I always get that look from you.
There's always some negative comment from somebody,
You
and
never
then
know.
they'll
Anyway.
vote yes.
You aren't staring there going, no, don't do that. What Pandora's box am I opening, I was originally hoping to announce that we were also going to be doing a house decorating contest. We had been approached by a business in town to do it. And as recently as Monday, it looked like it might work out, which is what I was kind of holding on sending the agenda out. And there was just some logistical things that we just couldn't quite put together in the time frame that we needed to do it.
I'm missing a little detail here. House decorating contest. Now we've moved beyond the Christmas parade,
Yes,
so we're
this-
talking
this would be
Christmas house decorating, not Halloween.
Yes, Christmas house. We were looking at a Christmas house decorating contest, and originally we were looking at jointly doing it with some local businesses. You know, they donate the prizes, and we couldn't work out the logistics in the time frame that I was hoping to do it, and so they're planning on doing it on their own for this year, and hopefully we can join up with them next year and
Does the
make it
garden club already do something like that?
No.
No, okay.
It's certainly been thought about. That individual called me today, and I thought it would be interesting to bring up. She happens.
I didn't want to get into the specifics
I got
on
a
purpose.
piece of candy in my mouth at the wrong time. That individual happens to be the daughter of the woman who started the Easter egg hunt.
Oh, okay.
And then I ran it with her for years with her mother. And so she's kind of used to how this might work and how we were a business sponsoring this, what it was. And she'd like to do the same thing. And she was disappointed that she couldn't do it with well, not exactly, because it wouldn't be any expense or anything or trouble to the town because they'd supply all the manpower. But I guess to use the town, I didn't get into the specific, use the town like as publicity and as auspices of kind of to put their blessing upon the project and have it another little town event. And I thought it sounded great. And we had done this in the past in my business for a couple of years. And it's kind of a bulky event without a lot of people. And she would very much like to join with the town. But one of the things is that she pictured, and I thought it was very cute, is to have, and Manchester I think did this some years ago, I can't recall, maybe you would, but have a map of the people who choose to be on the map. Obviously, nobody would have to put their name on the map who has a decorated house, but that the people would enjoy having a map to go around, know where to drive the kids that night, and all. And I understand there's always, I mean, my God, we used to put American flags on people's lawns and we'd get complaints. You know, I mean, people will complain about just about anything. But this would be, the neighbors of some of these decorated homes do object to cars driving by, but they're going to drive by if people have a map or not. So that's the plan, and it's great that you're thinking about next year, though, because I think that would please her if I called her tomorrow and say that, sure, that this is a great project. And
I remember now, you're right, Manchester did that. There was a map on like a dozen homes, all certain
the
decorated.
map is key.
Yeah.
And then the people will vote so that it isn't any hurt feelings about the business owner, the Chamber of Commerce voting. It would be the people. It would be you driving by with your family, and I like 20 Maidstone Drive, and the other person likes the one on Greatstone much better. But it would all come in.
And just
I think it'd be fun.
The concern was that there might be a lot of flack from the neighbors, particularly if you've got those, those houses on the, you got that one house on the street that's on a cul-de-sac that's decorated, and now you're directing traffic to that neighborhood, and it's like, do we want to get into that just now for a brand new event and kind of tarnish it almost? So, like I said, for now, they're going to do it on their own, and then, we're going to kind of look at it for next year when we have a little more time. Like I said, it was just trying to rush it. It would have been literally trying to get it all together and advertised in the next week.
Yeah, so we're not going to do anything.
It just wasn't enough time. So.
We're not going to do anything, Matt?
No, we're not.
Not this year.
Yeah.
Roads are public roads.
Yeah, I know, but
and people
you're going
decorate with
along
an
our
expectation that
conversation.
you're going to look at
Exactly.
So last two things, the boat ramp at Veterans Park is moving along somewhat slowly, but the engineering work's been done. They've gotten some cost estimates, which have come in a little higher than what we've expected. But the state permits have been filed, and so it's probably not going to be a fall completion, but we're still kind of waiting to see. It kind of depends on how long the state takes to respond on the permits and that kind of thing. And lastly, we will be moving back to Town Hall on Tuesday, unfortunately. I've talked to the town manager, who's kind of given me a blessing that once the function hall is up and running, we can stay there.
Oh, Oh.
at the park year round, but since we're not there yet,
You mean stay in the function hall?
well, we're going to stay at the park
On site.
on site.
If the goal is to have it a year-round
Yeah.
functionality to it, then it makes sense to make it a year-round
Right.
office.
So for the time being, we're coming back to town hall for one last winter, and obviously once that building's up and running, we move back. So if we get it done in January, we'll move in January, and if it's March, then we'll figure it out from there. But so we'll be moving Tuesday, and I think that's all I got.
No, Matt.
Yes.
One more. You skipped summer concert series sponsorship.
Yeah. That's what I get for trying to talk fast.
And Community Volunteers of the Month.
Oh, yeah, I get that one too. All right, so, so right now we get $4,000 from taxpayers to basically put on the summer concert series, which is, 8 concerts in the summer. $4,000 doesn't go very far. There's only so many $500 bands that you can bring in that are any good, and trying to keep it fresh and entertaining. I'm told 2 years ago when Sherry was here, or 3 years ago when Sherry was here now, the average attendance at a concert was like 30 people. We were averaging over 150 this year.
Really?
So that's pretty good. And we were at about 110 last year, up to 150 this year. So hopefully next year it'll be like 200 is the word gets out. So
Definitely.
So in order to try and hopefully bring in some new bands, I've developed a draft of a sponsorship policy for concerts, which could also eventually move on to other things, movie nights and whatever else. But we'll start with just the concerts. Kind of a variety of benefits that you would get. If you're sole sponsor at $1,000 or versus a co-sponsor at $500 or $250, or what that does is obviously if that money comes in, one, allows us to bring in bigger bands. Two, those sponsors are going to tell their friends and their employees and whatever, brings in bigger crowds, and it just brings the whole kind of profile of the event up. And realistically, the benefits, for us to provide the benefits, which is everything from having a table set up to, their name on the press releases, doesn't cost us really much of anything. So I've developed this policy, kind of a wide variety of benefits. This is still in draft form. I've talked to Paul and McCallie about how it might work, and he's on board.
Yeah, I have that, yeah.
In the short term, obviously, money would have to come in as a donation for the concert series. The council would have to accept the gift, and then the council would have to give me permission to expend it. But that shouldn't be a big issue.
By the time that stuff rolls around, don't we expect to have the revolving fund in place?
Well, and that's the next piece with the budget. And part of the budget process this year is obviously requesting the revolving fund, which kind of takes that piece out of that extra step out of the loop, because then the money can go through the revolving fund and just simplify it, and we can kind of
Easier bookkeeping.
Easier bookkeeping, yes. So that is my first thoughts on there. And like I said, most of that stuff, we have the tents, we have the tables already. I already stay for all the concerts anyway, because I usually do announcements beginning, middle, of end to, again, thank people for coming and promote other programs. We've got our table set up with all the kind of the upcoming programs anyway. And like I said, in my former community now, and again, the community I used to work for, we had 5,000 residents, and we were bringing in close to $7,000 a year in sponsorships. We got no taxpayer funding, and so the series was entire sponsor-driven. And eventually, that would be what we'd want to do here, is completely take it off the taxpayers and just be year-to-year funded by sponsors. That would be kind of the long-term goal. And obviously, Merrimack's 5 times the size, so theoretically it would be easier to do compared to 5,000 residents.
I have a question. Have the concerts always been on Wednesdays, or did you guys ever think to put it on like a Friday night instead? Maybe a wider range of people could go and.
I don't know the answer to that.
I love that question.
I do.
That is a good
Yes.
It's honestly, like, I'll be
Wednesday-
honest, I know a lot of people that are like, oh, this is such a great idea, and this is, but it's on a Wednesday night. They got to get their kids' homework. They got to get, everyone has to
midweeks,
work
yeah.
the next day. Something like a Friday or a Saturday night would honestly be like a great family building thing, and just kind of fun and something to do and get the community more involved, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've done Thursdays because when we have the National Guard band or military band, it's a drill night for them. And so they only do Thursdays.
Do they?
And they draw well, but you can only get them once every other year or something of that nature. We talked about and have tried on sporadic occasions, because we've been doing this since 1997,
Okay.
weekend nights, and
Yeah.
and it didn't draw.
It didn't work.
Now, maybe because it wasn't consistent for a whole season.
Yeah.
But there was a feeling, I think, that, number one, we were trying, at the time, we were trying to spark up some non-weekend events, and that there's a lot of people go away for the weekend and so forth. The kids don't tend to be a problem. You're not, it's not a school night.
Yeah, I just say that even for parents though, or like during the week, I know a lot of kids have events. They have soccer, they have, you know, whatever. I just thought,
And there's always going to be conflicts. I think Manchester does Sunday afternoons. And some of this is you're competing against every other town. New Boston runs one, Milford runs one, Londonderry runs two different. Londonderry does Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's two different groups.
Wow.
You know, so there's concerts within 10 miles pretty much every night of the week. And again, since I'm the one staffing them, you know, I don't necessarily want to come back in on a Saturday night myself when I'm a department, you know, realistically I'm a department of one, and especially in, you know, June and July, I'm usually working somewhere in the range of 80 to 90 hours a week anyway.
yeah. Even if we
just-
tried it like on a couple of Fridays
Yeah,
again
maybe.
and see if maybe, I don't know, just to kind of see
and
what
even
kind of
the mo-
response you get.
Maybe we try a couple, and because even the movie nights we did on Wednesdays, and we had, for Mary Poppins, we had 130 people
Which is
in
great.
at the end of August, in middle of August, and then we had one scheduled for the week of the 4th on that Wednesday, and it got rained out, and we did it right before the week before school started, and that still had like 60 people. So
You guys did a lot of advertising on that though too. That was all over Facebook and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and where you did it so far in advance. I mean, it kept popping up on my news feeds and stuff. So that was great. That I
We
mean,
work
kept,
on it.
and everybody, if you notice, everybody just kept inviting different people, and that did work out. Yeah.
I would suggest, I'm thinking about what you just said a minute ago, thinking about if somebody wants to sponsor a concert on a different night. Because I think from a publicity and a habit point of view, if you have one on Friday this week, and then Wednesday, and then Thursday, and then Wednesday, you need some continuity. But if you have somebody that wants to come in and sponsor something, and they want to do some other night, Friday or Saturday, maybe it fits their business model better. That would be a great opportunity to try something like that. And if whatever company wants to augment the program, especially if they're a food company and they want to sell or bring food or whatever.
Food always brings, so that's always a nice thing, you know. Because and even with
Food's
the
the hook.
sponsorships levels, you know, if they want to, you know, in my farmer community, you know, we'd have the equivalent of like friends and family would do hot dogs and just give them away as an event, and they did it for marketing purposes or Rotary or whoever.
Oh, we did that with the library last year.
Okay. And, you know, food always brings in. So, yeah, you could do kind of in-kind sponsorship kind of in these same price points, you know, and go from there. Because, again, food always does well.
The other thing...
And then you just make one banner that says, here's all our sponsors and, you know, here's the different levels. You know, here's the ones at this level, you know.
Right.
So it costs you $100 for a banner, you know. And
Right.
if you're getting $4,000 or $5,000, you know, it's short change.
Well, I think overall, what we're trying to discuss here is the sponsorship program. So if we come back to that, all looks good to me. I guess the question I have is, do we need a motion? Does the town council need to do with this? Or is this administrative within the department?
I'm inclined to say administrative. Paul didn't say anything to me about needing it to go to the council, but I don't know for sure.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, we can do it.
Because again, the donations are going to have to get accepted by the council for the time being anyway, so
Yeah.
they're still going to have that piece.
I think that's
Um,
sense.
Well, let's just have for formality then.
Sure.
Perhaps a motion of support. Anybody? Julie?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded that the Parks Committee is in support of a sponsorship program for summer concerts and the possible future expansion.
okay.
Is that
Yep.
sufficient? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now my last one. So here's my new brainstorm. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I go, oh, I have this idea. And fortunately, I have a smartphone, so I email it to myself so I get it the next day or I don't forget. But anyway, so this was one of those. There's a lot of people in this community that do an awful lot. Volunteering, with us, but with also MYA and the library and so my thought was maybe starting to find a way to recognize those volunteers, particularly the ones that are supportive of us, and the first one that comes into mind is Holly Morales with Girl Scouts and Dog Park and everything else. But again, thinking about some of the coaches that are coaching 3 sports and, those kinds of things. And my idea is maybe we have a kind of a standing agenda item each month to kind of just, again, recognize them, give them a little thank you, for their efforts. And if people like that idea, we could start that as early as November, because again, my first one is Holly Morales is the thought.
Didn't you just let the cat out of the bag?
I did.
By saying that.
I did, but
TV too.
does anybody watch this?
She's
on
at a
TV?
meeting. She's not watching.
Just erase that part. Yeah.
She DVR'd it though. Probably.
But,
I have a comment.
yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea. That this town runs on volunteers, and we have wonderful staffing, wonderful paid staff too. Thank you, Matt. But really, it's an amazing town, I think. And it'd be great to be recognized.
I agree. I love that idea.
Okay. Now
Press
done.
on then.
I am pressing on.
You're going to centralize that?
I will centralize that. And but if you have, we'll call it nominations for future months, just email them to me, and I'll send out kind of promptu reminders, I guess, when we do, meeting reminders for future meetings. But I've got a couple in my head, so. Okay.
Which brings us to organization reports. So, Senior Citizens Club, Maureen's not here. Anybody, no substitute for her?
Nope.
MYA?
I'm pleased to report that football is currently in session, as well as baseball and softball, which are just ending. Soccer will be ending within a couple of weeks as well. Basketball is just beginning, actually in a couple of weeks. Same with wrestling, and currently lacrosse has registration ongoing, but is inactive as a sport itself. And that's really all I have to report at this time.
Very good. School board, town council. Either one.
I can't think of anything to offer other than I'm glad everything is proceeding rather quickly at Wasserman Park with the funds that became available. So that's just great news. To think that January is a month where they're looking to have things done is just fantastic. So even if it's past that date, to target where we are right now is just great news.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's April,
Yep.
for some reason,
Of course. Yep.
can't get in there or whatever, then that's still not bad.
Yep. That's it.
And school?
Just a couple things. Budget season, of course, is approaching. Also, the school board recently wrote a letter to FERC expressing its concern over the proximity of the proposed NED pipeline going, at least that version that we had last looked at, the pipeline was going to go on school district property. So the school board unanimously supported writing that letter and submitting it.
Comments from the board?
Cindy, I'm
Just
curious.
seeing no present public here.
Is it Thornton's Ferry property?
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Continental Boulevard. Okay. Yep, specifically. If anybody was wondering, like a couple years ago when they were proposing a South Fire Station, the school district, obviously the school's on one side of Continental Boulevard, but they own land across the street. And it was part of that parcel that's owned by the school district that was targeted as maybe a future South Fire Station site.
Thank you.
Interesting. I did have one other question. You and I had talked about budget advocacy.
Yep.
And I can't remember what we talked about for an item. Budget will be coming up next month, probably.
Yeah, I
So-
was given my budget instructions from Paul McCallie this morning, so, because I know the council's got it tomorrow.
Not,
it's on the
just to open up the
okay.
discussion of where the individual councils want to give their 2 cents on the upcoming season, budget season. But other than that, I don't want to, there's no other firm details.
Yeah.
More or less to give the town manager, councilors' perspectives on where to head.
Mm-hmm.
So that topic will be relevant tomorrow night.
Right. So yeah, by November, by our next meeting, I should have mine, because actually mine's due November 7th. I have to have it turned in, so, which doesn't give me a whole lot of
So
time.
we'll be after the fact.
Yeah. But we already kind of talked about it, but if you have anything else that comes up, then send it my way.
So if there are things that you think we should be, as a committee, advocating for in the budget process for Parks and Recreation, then we can discuss it, and the budget is a flexible item up until January or so, and then it starts to really lock in pretty tight.
Yep.
So we've got a little bit of time left. In the meantime, does anybody else have any other comments or? I have one last, and this is, I think you've all seen the email here, but I'm put it out on the airwaves that Megan Murphy is getting her Girl Scout Gold Award on November 8th. The committee has been invited. It's at St. James Church at 2 p.m. And following that, there will be, for those who desire, to go over and tour the Arts and Crafts building that was renovated or rehabbed as part of her Gold Award project. So I hope some of you, I know Matt plans to go. I'll be there. Any of you that want to go to that, refreshments afterwards.
And I sent that out this week, that,
Yep.
that email announcement about it. But originally it was going to be in the function hall, but, since there was no bathrooms, because we have to shut off the water pretty much we've actually already started shutting off the lower half of the park for water because of the freeze we had last weekend.
Yeah.
And I just have to get through the Halloween party because I didn't want to have to rent a bunch of porta potties for the Halloween party. But the rest of the water will be turned off next week. So
In any event,
So
for
that was
those of
what
you who have seen it, you know that that was a major project to rehab that building. She did a great job.
and if anybody can't make that and wants to come over, I can certainly show you.
Matt, do we have any sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Do we have any pictures yet of them, of the improvements that are posted yet? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Okay.
There was some of the progress, and and I thought we posted final pictures, but I can't remember.
I don't recall.
Because
seeing
it
them.
kind of finished literally like days before camp opened, and so that it kind of
It's
got
all-
pushed on the back burner.
Okay. Anybody else? Final motion.
I wanted to just say one brief thank you to the community after Merrimack Rocks. Once again, I'm just always amazed on Sunday morning when we go down with a few of our friends to pick up after the park and how little picking up needs to be done. It's quite a testimony. I've never seen so many people in one area, and then you go to pick up paper and bottles and stuff, and there's just so little to pick up. The park was literally cleaned in less than an hour.
That's awesome.
So it was just a fantastic event, and thank everybody for coming. And again, as me and Dave McCrae and others evolved the event in our third year, food is the hook. We added more food vendors this year, and they all reported a great night for them, and they'd love to come back. But I think it was just another good time, and I just wanted to thank everybody for that. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, we are out of here. Thank you all.
The goals that the district is making in the classroom. So I did want to make those points, and I think it does come to a head for me that we do need a very well-rounded presentation like you've given tonight when curriculum is being developed and what's being done, why it's being done, what methodology, what